There we go. Hi, Natalie. Thank
Hi,
you
Jamie.
so much for coming on. I know that we sent this we have been planning this for a while, but I did not promote it as much as I should have. But I am promoting you now, and I think that you're fabulous. I'm really excited to have you on today to give us some tips and tricks. And we're recording, so in case I'm gonna go ahead and get started just because we only have like the 30. I don't even think it's going to take us 30 minutes. So I guess we can probably wait just a few minutes to see if anybody jumps on. But I did put the link out there. So hopefully people join. If not, I told them that we would send this to them. So
Fantastic.
um, tell us about you. I have lots of people that are like, who's Natalie Dennis? I'm like, I can't believe you don't know. She's
Well, I've been doing this appraisal thing. Pretty much, I have 18 years background in mortgage. Since 2009, when HVCC rolled out a Dodd-Frank thing, we call it AIR now. It's been updated to AIR. I have been doing just the appraisal piece of the mortgage process since then, so a long time. I moved over to the vendor side, so the AMC space, 5 years ago, and just been developing the last piece of it, right? I already know all of the compliance stuff from the lender side of it. It's the relationship piece that I've been working on mastering with the appraisers, the clients, the brokers, and all that kind of stuff. So I am a very strange resource. When it comes to guidelines, I'm sending them out constantly in regards to, Natalie, what do we do with this FHA appraisal? We have a new buyer. So I'm a great resource for guideline questions because my background is really lenders operations. So that can really help. I'm a great tool in regards to that. The market's just slow, right? And there's a lot of things and moving parts. So if you have questions before you want to get the ball rolling, I can also be a great resource in that regard. We're licensed in all 50 states. So that's
That's
what we
awesome.
do.
And
Yeah.
we've had times where you've had to come in and like save the day, which is why I'm like you are a great resource. And actually, like while I'm thinking of it, I do have a question for you because I have an appraisal that came in and I was looking at it. It's an FHA appraisal. The conditions on it, one of it said, and it's in Washington, but I know in California, you guys probably have the seismic strap thing for the water heaters.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the picture. It looks like the regular metal straps and it's attached to the wall. And the appraiser called it out and said that it's not an actual seismic strap, that it's metal plumber's tape. So what's the difference between the seismic straps and the plumber's tape?
I would assume, I'm not a contractor, but just shooting from the hip, the seismic straps, the two metal straps that go around, they have those little holes in them that are to go to screw in the wall. If he referred to it as tape, I'm thinking it's
Yeah,
literally.
but I saw a picture. It's got holes in it.
I would
So
love to take a look at that one.
yeah, I'll have to
And
send it to you. I just thought that
yeah,
was so weird. I've never seen that
that
being.
was insanely specific on that
Yeah,
appraiser.
right?
And the real interesting thing is, some appraisers can act like mini home inspectors, right? They can get really nitpicky. And appraisers are literally, humans. I think we forget, but they run the gamut. You get some that will really comb through a house and spend hours. But I think one of the biggest misnomers in the appraisal space is how much time the appraiser is expected to spend at the home. And so I always try to tell the realtors so they can set a better expectation for the borrower. The appraiser, as long as it's more of a cookie cutter house and not something very large in GLA, I say GLA in exchange for square footage in case you don't, they're not familiar
Thank
with the
you for that.
terminology. Yeah, gross living area. So that's
Okay,
what
gross living area.
yeah, that's what we use in my space. But it's the same thing as square footage. So if the larger the home in outbuildings, they have to measure. And especially for FHA, they have to sketch the patios and porches and all that kind of thing. So on a cookie cutter home, the appraiser is probably going to be there. I'd say 20 to 30 minutes. FHA, they're going to do a lot more. They have to get into crawl spaces and things like that. I actually was in the field yesterday doing an FHA inspection on one of our appraisals. I took my team out, so they had a better understanding when they're fielding phone calls from, clients and whatnot, how the process is. So they have to get in the attic, do a head and shoulders, take their photos. And there's a lot more photos required on FHA. We also have to go through, like, in the bathrooms and the showers in the kitchen. We have to turn on and test all of the appliances. And so that can take a little bit of extra time too. Those are not things that we have to do on conventional. So the FHA inspections tend to take a little bit longer. And then obviously, like, if you have a horse property with barns and shops and all that kind of thing, the appraiser is going to have to measure all of those. So just sometimes measuring and sketching can take quite a bit of time, depending on how large the property is. Those inspections could take hours for the more complex, and that's why the fees go up, because of all of the extra work that they have to do. But for the standard property, home inspection should only take about 20 to 30 minutes. They get in and they get out. And then the large majority of the work is really done behind the computer, right? Searching for comps. Reports are pretty long, right? Some 30, 40, 50, 60 pages of data, and typing them up. So that's really where the appraiser does the majority of their work. On FHA, they require them to drive past the comparable. That is a time sucker for them too. And especially if you get maybe more of a rural property where the comps are 15, 20 miles a pop, that's a lot of extra driving.
Yeah.
And so it's hard sometimes because complexity, when we talk about the fee for the appraiser, complexity doesn't always reflect in value. You can have a very complex property that's listed for 150 because of rural location and it's FHA. Now they have to drive, round trip 60 miles just to shoot photos. So I hope that kind of helps, understand the fee pricing a little bit too, of why you could have, such a low purchase transaction, but a higher appraisal fee, $700-800. So sometimes those things don't always connect, but that's the reasoning behind it.
That is a really good thing to think about. I mean, obviously we're getting paid on time, right? So like if there are outbuildings or like other things. And um, do you have like points that we can help with VA? Because I know that has kind of been a big subject right now. Is that a lot of people are still thinking that the VA offers aren't getting accepted, or that sellers don't want to deal with VA appraisals. Is that still a thing? Like, and can you kind of talk to us about like what they're looking for on VA, if it's similar to FHA, and like if that's really if it, because in my opinion, like I feel like nothing's really changed yet, right? And I'm sorry, I work from home, so if you can see out here my dogs and my kids and stuff, like there's not usually this loud, but of course when we're doing a webinar. So anyway, but yes, I do. VA has been a big thing, for me at least lately. And, I think, with the 0% down, it helps a lot of the buyers in this affordability market. So what can we have, like, especially like the agents that are on here, if they have buyers, maybe if they have sellers that are seeing a VA, offer come in, or, as we're getting into the bidding war, I mean, I don't know, in my markets, I'm really worried with these rates dropping that we're going to start seeing those bidding wars again and appraisal waivers and things like that. So like, what does that look like if it's a strong VA offer, but they're worried about the appraisal?
So VA actually handles their own appraiser panel
Oh
and
yeah,
they
that's
handle all
right.
of it in-house. But a lot of their requirements are very similar to FHA and USDA. I
Mhm.
think the root of the additional requirements why the appraisers have to do a more intense home inspection is because most often there's little to no money in or down. And
Mhm.
so that is their collateral, right? So they really want to make sure that the house is livable, that their collateral is protected. because they're not coming with 20% down. The VA appraisers, the blessing and the curse. Typically, the way that it works in our space is VA appraisers won't dabble. This market's a little bit, this is probably one of the slower markets we've seen in a long time. But in most markets, a VA appraiser will not do conventional FHA. They won't do anything else. The
Okay.
reason for that is when they sign up
Definitely.
with the VA, they cannot decline an order. The
Okay.
blessing is that's why their fees are so high, right? On some of them, I mean, I think VA has always led the pack in fees, $700-800, maybe more.
Mhm.
So the good news is the appraiser's getting a big fee, but sometimes that means that they have to take a job an hour away and they're getting that same fee. They don't get to haggle. It's like VA is kind of like the CarMax
Mhm.
of appraisal experiences where it's a no haggle price.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of like the blessing and the curse of the VA. They cannot decline the work, but in exchange, I think in sometimes in better markets where we see more of the cookie cutter homes refinancing and whatnot, that's probably where they make their money back. But I'm thinking in like a slower market where things are more spread out, not as much movement. They're probably having to drive further and go further to get their appraisals done.
That makes sense too. Yeah. And I totally forgot. Sorry, I always forget that they're
You're
their
good.
own
I
thing.
do have an FHA checklist that you
Okay.
can give out to any agents that are interested to kind of just help them avoid re-inspections. I know one of the common things is we think the appraiser wants that fee to go back out there, but I can assure you it
Yeah.
is a fraction of a regular fee and it takes about the same time as the
Yeah.
first inspection. So they don't want to go back out to the property.
And
Um,
is it usually the underwriter that is asking them to go back out and verify instead of just having the pictures? Because I feel like sometimes they'll take pictures and sometimes we have to have the appraiser go back out. So in your
Usually the loan
experience
type
with
is
that.
going to dictate the flexibility. On FHA, it's a hard stop.
Mhm.
They have to certify and to keep their FHA licensing that they saw it with their own eyeballs.
Mhm.
That's the hard one.
Okay.
I literally had one right before this one. It was a new construction. We had already done two finals
Mm.
and the builder let them close, right? So we were doing like a post-closing final for a light in the back that hadn't been, but it's FHA.
Yeah.
And so they had to pay for three final inspections because the builders people just were very slow to finish these little last pieces. And there's just a lot less wiggle room on FHA deals in that regard. So on conventional, there's a lot more flexibility.
Okay.
When it comes to a double strapped water heater or carbon and smoke, detectors, we can typically just have the appraiser put a comment in the report that one, all, whatever, were not present. But then the mark a box that allows the underwriter to get the photo from the agent, from the seller, whomever, and clear it. Sometimes depending, the lenders also and the underwriters will also impact how flexible they are. Some are much more flexible taking those and signing off. If they don't like that idea, another option on conventional I can give them is I'll have the appraiser put it in the report, but label provided by a third party.
Mhm.
That's kind of option two to make the underwriter feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy. And then if the underwriter is really digging their heels in, then we'll have to do another re-inspection.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that FHA checklist, and I know like it's really good to give obviously to our buyers, but also to agents that are thinking they want a home to go FHA, and whether or not their seller is willing to fix those things is going to be a big thing because that would already, if you can prep them to have those things completed before the appraisal, then they don't have to go back out like you said. And if they don't want to go FHA because they don't want to have to fix any of it, then they have that like right up front. They would know whether or not it would work out. So
I think that's
um,
super important. If you have a seller that's really unwilling to do any repairs and you have exterior peeling paint. So a couple years ago, FHA updated their guidelines. And I think a lot of people who've been doing this for a long time, they have that 1978 number stuck in their head.
Mhm.
They actually kind of modified it.
Okay.
They became more flexible on the interior peeling paint, and deferred maintenance on the inside, light drips, you know what I mean? As long as it's not majorly leaking. So they loosened up on the inside stuff, which was nice. But they really stuck to their guns on the exterior peeling paint. And it is not in regards to 1978. It is basically if there's wood and it's not sealed or painted, if it's chipping, peeling on a fence, on a post, on the moldings around the window, on an eave, on an outbuilding, it's going to get called out. So it's really, really important if there's a lot of, fencing is very expensive, right? Like the cost of everything has just skyrocketed.
Mhm.
So I do think that an agent, the more that they know about the FHA requirements, the better job that they will not qualify for FHA. So they don't accept FHA offers, right?
Mhm.
So those would be definite little things that they could do to, you know,
So
make
with
a better
that
experience.
peeling paint, it's like it needs to be off and it can't be on the ground either. Like they can't just go spray paint it or like your pressure wash it off, right? Like they need to
Correct.
have it like cleaned up, gone like it was never there. And then they need to paint. It doesn't matter what color, they just have to paint over again so that it's non-exposed wood, basically.
Yes, and
Okay.
obviously, if we're painting the side of a house, we need it to match, right? Because then we have questions like, well, if you the re almost one side of the house is white and the other's pink, we're going to have a marketability issue. So we really should, right, try to make it nice. But you're right. If there, for whatever reason, is a lot of paint chips left behind, unfortunately, the appraiser will have to call it out. They have to call out excessive debris, whether it's in the house, in the yard. They have to call out excessively overgrown bushes and plants. So they really do act like mini home inspectors on FHA, USDA loans, VA. Really, it all comes kind of back to that, little money down. So
Mhm.
they just really need to make sure that the exterior bones of the house um, are not exposed to the elements. I think that's the real root of it. So cracked concrete, things like that in the driveways, all of those things will get called out. um, Health and safety issues, a lot more on the FHA, VA stuff, more so than the conventional.
I totally agree with that. And it's so funny though, sometimes like you said, like it depends on the appraiser, like what's gonna get called out or not, because I bought a house one time with a VA loan and the driveway had cracks in it from the one of the tree roots, but they didn't call it out. And so I thought that was really interesting that, we thought we were gonna have to deal with that and how expensive that was gonna be and all that, but they didn't call it out. So you never really know until you like get through, to the process. But the top things, like you said, those health and safety, and that's what I always tell people, like the CO2 and smoke detectors, and they have to be on both levels because that's another thing. Like people put it one place but not the other, or they'll just put
Mhm.
one in there, not all of them. Um, what's the other one that I kind of remind? So I know we talked about chipping and peeling paint and the water double strapped on the water heaters. Um, the other one I was thinking is the baseboard heating. Isn't that like where it's it has to be, or there has to be the heating in every room, or is that still a thing like where
Oh, you mean like a permanent heat source in general?
yeah, I think so. Like
Yeah, so if a house has it stove is not the right word, but those like freestanding anyways.
you like
Um
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like the old things, like old houses,
Correct,
really old
correct.
houses.
Yeah, so we basically the idea between um that word permanent heat source, window units actually count as permanent heat source. I think that's probably the lowest hanging fruit when you need to fix whether it's an AC or heating issue. those are probably going to be your easiest and cheapest fixes over, you know, having a contractor install a whole HVAC system. What they can't do is obviously like a little fan you can plug in or a little space heater, anything you plug into a wall and that you could unplug and very easily take with you. That's the ones that we can't use to solve the problem. But they figured, and I think that's kind of like, you know, if your curtains are up at your house, you know, because it's bolted into a wall, you got to leave it, right?
Mhm.
But your couch, it's not bolted to anything, so you can take that. I think that's the same thought process
With the
with
heater,
heating and air. Exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, what else should we talk about? What else is going
I
on in
think
your
we should
world?
talk about agents. Typically, they're pretty interested in how to approach an appraiser in regards to, I guess, comparables, list prices, and all that kind of thing. So I usually say if you're the agent and you're going to meet the appraiser out at the inspection, which is pretty common, um, don't be waiting in the driveway. Don't walk up to the car, knock on the window, and have your package ready. Play it cool. You know, greet them, let them do their thing. At the end, if there are things like maybe your seller just did a whole bunch of upgrades to the house, that information would be great if you can put it in a list, whether it's upgraded paint, upgraded floorings, updated kitchens, bathrooms, whatever. If you can put it in a list, that would be great. Let the appraiser do their thing. They're going to measure, so the single family homes get measured from the outside. So they're going to spend some time outside, probably 15, 20 minutes getting their measurements. Then they're going to come inside and they're going to start taking pictures of the rooms. They don't actually spend a lot of time inside, but that would be your opportunity if there had been upgrades to kind of go through that with them. And then at the end, you know, I would recommend just thanking them for their time and saying, hey, here's the list of the closed sales that I used to set the list price. You know, if you find it helpful, great. And just kind of, you know, pass it off to them. A lot of the appraisers are very willing if approached in the right way, and they welcome your data and input. I think it's just in the way we approach things with them. So in that comp selection or upgrades, I'll try to kind of talk about all of it so you can better understand. Um, when you It's not a one size fits all because we're constantly changing how we do things based on what the market's doing. And what I mean by that is in more stable markets, appraisers typically feel comfortable going out a year because the market's been stable. And so they know there hasn't been any large changes in values, right? But these last couple of years have been the strangest. Um, I think that we've seen ever, if not in a very long time. So what happens right now when there's been such a lack of listings, right? So many people are locked into their 3% rate and they want to move, but they can't because they can't qualify at a 7 or 8%. But everyone's sitting on a lot of equity, home equity. So it's caused a lot of markets just to have like 75% less listings than we've had in previous years, right? So the appraisers typically they want to stay um, first in a normal market when things are just really moving. They're going to look for model matches first. And a model match is location, right? Same school district, similar GLA or square footages, similar bed and bath count. Basically, when your buyer asks you to take them out and show them houses, the same kind of algorithm that you're right, they tell you, well, we're looking to grow a family, so we want to be in this school district. All those little things, that's what an appraiser is prioritizing too. However, because there's been such lack of market activity this year, we've really been trying to stick with first what has sold most recently, even if it's not in the same school district. even if it's further out, because we don't want to go to last year's market. Last year's market doesn't look like this year's market. So today's logic for picking comps is different than what we've suggested in previous markets. So time of sale is going to be top dog. Then we're going to back into all the other things. Then we're going to try to get something within 10% of the same size, similar bedroom and bath count. Then we try to get it in same neighborhoods. Obviously, golf course communities that have additional amenities and things, right? They typically trade for more because they have tennis courts you can use, or a golf or whatever. So all of those things are, we try to get checking the box, but I can honestly tell you right now, at the end of the day, when the appraisers are really kind of just searching for what's closed most recently, on the comp grid, which is a couple pages down into the appraisal report, where you'll see your subject address, then you'll see the first three comps that are listed out, right? And then it's just grid lines. So that's what I'm talking about, the comp grid. There's several lines. There's location, seller concessions, there's quality of construction, condition, bedroom, bathroom count, size. Are there any other amenities, fences, pools, accessory units, solar, right? And so the appraiser just starts kind of going down. I'm seeing, so at the bottom, after the appraiser kind of adjust things to try and make it an apples to apples comparison, I'm seeing larger gross adjustments, and that's byproduct of just a lack of current sales, a lack of model match current sales, and the appraiser's really just trying to focus on what has sold recently and try to then whittle it down of like, well, this one just sold, but it has a pool, but you know what I mean? So I hope that helps in regards to thinking like how you're pricing it out, how to find comps. If you feel the appraiser picked the wrong comps and you want us to look at additional comparables, I have one going now. All the two biggest mistakes the client made when requesting the reconsideration values, well, there's actually three. The appraiser cannot consider any sales that have closed after the date of their inspection. So if
So
you
putting listings on there,
yeah, if
they're
you
under
know the house
contract.
across the street is under contract and is pending, and you call your friend and find out what it's pending for and when it's going to close, and that can really help be a comp to support your purchase price, I would recommend putting that appraisal on hold for a couple of days until you know it's closed and recorded, and then we can use that as a comp. So that can really help, especially in this market that's been so slow, especially if it can be a comp to help support your value. That can also work in the reverse. Sometimes we get sales where maybe the seller needed to go out of state to take care of their parents, and they're kind of doing a quick sale and they're giving it away. Sometimes the appraisers will disregard those if they know it was more of a distress sale. So if you happen to know any of those situations, the more information, the better. The appraisers love those little nuggets, so please feel free to share that information with them. But basically, if the house closes after the inspection date, we're not going to be able to use it as a comp, which really sucks. The other thing is we can't use listings. Actually, Fannie and Freddie don't even require the appraisers to add listings to the report. They only have to have 3 closed sales. However, every lender I've ever worked with does like to see at least 1 listing, if possible. So we do add them, but I think we all know you can list a house for whatever you want. It doesn't mean it's going to sell for that. So that is why we just don't put weight on listing, because all we're really looking for is the closed sale value. And then the other thing was the date of the sale. That is a really big deal right now. Somebody sent an ROV that had sales that had all closed well over a year ago. It was more around the 15-month mark. And look further back, and the appraiser's like, no, these are so old and dated, I'm not going to consider them. And then the last one that was more of a recent sale, it closed in June, was 1,200 square feet larger. So the appraiser's like, this is somebody looking for this home would not be looking for this home. It's not a comp, so I'm not going to consider it. So those are little things that will, stop a reconsideration of value.
I love that. Yeah, because I mean, it's happening more often than it used to with the low appraisal values right now, but I know that it's a lot to do with the comps. I'm thinking you guys just gave me an idea because I know we have the FHA cheat sheet to kind of like let our realtors know what to look for, but I was thinking about a little, maybe we could do a template for an appraisal package of like something that would be helpful to give the appraiser, like you said, and kind of preface it with, okay, this is, when to give it to them, how to give it to them, like as a thank you or to add value, and just be able to help our realtors, like, show that, like you said, like, here's the comps that I used and here's any notes or whatever, but have it like maybe branded with their stuff, all their contact info. So I know that, we could do a Canva template or something like that and have
I
it.
think every agent should have CO detectors in their car with their face on them and just
Right.
hero right there.
I love that. Well, I know we're getting close to time, and I just, like I said, I appreciate you so much. And I know that we'll be able to get these documents out to my realtors with this video. And I know that it's going
Absolutely.
to add so much value. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
jumping on here with
Next
me.
session, we can jump into what things a seller can do to add value and what are the pitfalls of things they spend a lot of money on that they get nothing back for. So that
Yeah.
can be session number 2.
Okay, I love it. Yeah, we'll schedule another little Zoom meeting with you, and I'll hopefully get more people this time. But I know it's the holidays and everybody's
This
busy.
video
That's
is going to go
why.
viral, Jamie. I know it.
Yes, I know. Well, my agents are gonna love it, and they're gonna watch it whenever they have time. But I just wanted to start getting some things scheduled out for us. So
Awesome.
I really am so thankful for you, Natalie,
You're
and everything you do.
welcome.
You've saved me so many times. So
Awesome.
we appreciate you.
I
So.
appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Okay. Well, have a fantastic day and holiday season. I'll be in touch because I'm going to get those sheets from you so I can send it
Okay.
out with the video.
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
All right. Okay,
Bye.
bye.